I arrived in Nazareth, Israel in 1990 with barely enough Arabic to form a sentence. An Italian-American girl from Hazleton, Pennsylvania, called to live life in the Middle East and ending up in a little neighborhood called Hay al-Warud. My 3 children were born in Nazareth and grew up in what I consider to be the most idyllic, utopian neighborhood I've ever known, because in that place, we lived in Kairos time, enjoying community and connection and the riches of life together. My heart swells with gratitude as I think back on the tireless patience of my Arabic neighbors who taught me how to speak their language while I confused words like mashul and mas'ul. Just that slight variation is the difference between me saying diarrhea and responsibility. They taught me how to make their cardamom-infused coffee as I boiled it like thick black lava all over the stove. And they taught me how to make their extraordinary food with just this much cumin and that much cinnamon. Now, they had busy lives like anybody, but they took time for me and my family, not just so we could live among them, but that we could belong. And when I left that neighborhood 12 years later, not only could I speak Arabic like a local and make coffee like Rima and Nadia and cook their food every day of the week, I took something far greater, what they taught me about community and time. They taught me how to live life as it comes. Ahlan wa sahlan, they would say. Welcome, and it flowed so easily from them as they welcomed people to their homes and to their lives. Ahlan wa sahlan. I watched them welcome life's tragedies and triumphs with such grace and resilience. I watched them sit for days and receive people bringing condolences at the loss of a loved one, and I saw them prepare and celebrate for days as a new couple embarked on their life together. Ahlan wa sahlan. What are we welcoming so that we can let life in? Are we just tracking time and checking off boxes and crossing things off lists so we can say we got our to-dos done? Or are we saying ahlan wa sahlan and really letting life in? The ebb and the flow, the good days and the bad, the joys and the sorrows. Shwai shwai, they would say, slowly, slowly, as we lingered in conversation, drinking coffee in cups almost the size of thimbles. Shwai shwai, slowly, slowly, with every decision and every choice, from buying a couch to taking a wife. How far removed my Western clock is from those days, those earlier Kairos days, as I think back. Shwai shwai. Just the sound of it helps me tap the brakes, breathe more slowly, center myself, and get present. Kairos living in a Chronos world. We can do it. I've done it. More focused on the face of the person in front of us than on the face of the clock. Our Chronos living, wrought with technology in our multitask, multi-device existence, doesn't have to keep us from living a Kairos life. We can choose. We can decide to unplug and unwind. We can focus on doing fewer things rather than trying to do everything. And we can be okay with process and excellence rather than demanding perfection and expecting everything show up gift-wrapped and showroom ready. Kairos living in a Chronos world, not just swept along with the throng in a hurried pace to get to what's next, but an intentional, tempered cadence that allows us time for those we love, for things we hold dear, so we can live and breathe and be. When I left Nazareth in 2002, I returned back to my own country like a foreigner. It turns out that it was far harder to leave Nazareth than it was to go overseas in the first place. In fact, I cried for about a year till I realized we were going to stay here and we weren't going back. It was my friend Pat who repatriated me over cups of coffee and tea and listened to all of my wonderful stories about my beloved Nazareth, who finally said to me one day, "That's it. You've played the foreigner card long enough." That was the smack that I needed to remind me that though we weren't going back, I could live life like that here. Now, one of my favorite Arabic phrases is ask about the neighbor before you ask about the house. Asal an dajar qabl ad-dar. And it means that people trump places. So with renewed vision, I set out to build community in my own backyard. As I gathered people together and sat together with people over coffee again, I realized that my new Nazareth was right here in Wilmington, Delaware. Now, it's been years since I've lived among those beautiful, caring people in that neighborhood. But what I've come to see is that everything they taught me has been woven into the very fabric of my life. The night we left Nazareth, we stood in the street to say goodbye. We held on to one another. And they said, how will we ever find neighbors like you again? We said back, how will we ever find neighbors like you, as we drove away from one of the most amazing chapters of my life? Eventually, we learned we could meet new neighbors, and we could write new chapters, and we could seek to live a Kairos life in this Chronos world. But to do that, we would need time to treasure the relationships, to insist on carving out Kairos moments, to make the most of our hours and our days, and to embrace every season as it comes. Each of us has the same number of hours in our days, but we don't all have the same number of days in our lives. At some point, the clock will stop. What will we have done with our hours? What will we have done with our days? Kairos living in a Chronos world. Fi nawa'it. We have time.